I did not pay her. Okay. But I will now, right? Take her on the road. Before I start, just wanted to give an announcement that if you did not say whether or not you want your workshops recorded, yes or no, please see me or Judine afterwards, because I'm helping with the audio recordings of workshops. Okay, so all that excitement out of the window. Okay, so I came to the conference the first time in 2012. I went to Portland. No, Orlando. I've been to Portland one too, in Austin, in Boston. But I went to Portland, and I found this when I was going through some journals. And I had went to alternatives, and this is my artwork. It says, alternatives makes me feel good. That was my first alternatives conference. And the reason it's so important to me is because I've told people it was the first time I was around every type of person with every type of mental illness, emotional distress. The whole DSM book was there, okay? Whether diagnosed, undiagnosed, medicated, not medicated, hospitalized, not hospitalized, peer, consumer, survivor, everything. It was the first time that I was able to see that maybe you can do something with your life out of the shadows, because it was so many of people, and I was just like, wow. You know, and it's just amazing because you are able to see people can be everything. They can be, whether or not they want to work, whether or not they want to volunteer, they want to be advocates, directors of federal agencies, like all kinds of things, right? So, amazing, amazing. So I also wanted to say, welcome to DC, okay? So, you are in the greatest city in the world, right? Can I get some DC folks to, yes. So proud to live in DC, proud to live in Southeast and Congress Heights. My parents are natives. I was in the area since I was 3 on the Maryland side and chose to live in DC 20 years ago. And so I have a lot of love in the room, and I appreciate everybody who came out tonight. I feel like doing my stand-up also, because I do stand-up. You're just going to be in a, try to follow this, okay? Just try to follow this. So I won't, my mom is not here. She'll look at the recording. They're in South Carolina, but usually if no one laughs, she'll laugh, and I'll be like, thanks, Mom. The NAMI DC, which is National Alliance on Mental Illness, the DC chapter, I have a shirt on. They're in the room. Our President Harris is here, and our interim executive director. We have many members in the audience. I went to NAMI DC when I was very sick. A lot of people don't realize that how sick I was. Very few people have seen that or remember that. NAMI DC remembers that. And I learned the message of stigma, that you have to mask these things. Because when I first had illness symptoms, I was in law school, and it was, shh, don't tell anybody. And you're like, okay. And then luckily I ended up in a great counseling center on campus, saved my life. Yeah. But when you're told, we're not even making files because that way it can't be obtained by the bar committee, right, which the rules have changed. But when you're told that kind of message, it's like, shh, you know? Yeah. So of course, let alone the stigma, I'm echoing, is that okay? Okay. Let alone the stigma that is part of mental illness in the community, in your families, in the world, but then you internalize it. So for me, it was internalizing stigma, which is gonna kill you. Like, for me, all I wanted to do was, this isn't working out, you know, what do I do about this? I thought with my first session, when he was saying that this is gonna take a while for you to get through some things in your past and things you're dealing with now. I was in active bulimic, was very sick. And he's like, this is gonna take a while. And I'm like, a month of hard work? You know? He's like, I was like, 6 months. He's like, mm-mm. I was like, a year. A year, I got this. You know, because that's how my life had been. Yeah. It was like, open this book. Oh, okay, don't even need the book, take the test, whatever. Want to do this? Go. You know, I was a Russian exchange student. I backpacked in Europe. Like, all these kind of things I never had to try. But getting past mental illness, like to the point of getting past suicide attempts, right. Like getting past that was the hardest thing I ever did in my whole life. And continues to be a full-time job in addition to all the other things you have to do every day. That gave me a passion because it was the hardest thing. It was the most challenging thing. Law school was not hard. I'm sorry for those who it was. I had a lot of offers. I don't know how I did so well on the LSAT, but it was not hard. School had never been hard. Work had never been hard. But this was hard. It was challenging. I felt defeated. I wanted to die. Like, I tried to die. The best thing that could happen to me, I thought, was to be dead. But luckily, and just not luckily, by the grace of God, people were in my life to lead me in a way that where I could not receive that from anyone else or my family. They were there to be my lights and to hold hope for me. And I'm still even connected to most of them. The first ones that I met in 2002, getting help. So it's so I was going somewhere with that one, Nami DC, but you get the gist of it. I always thought the worst thing that could happen to me was to get back into the psych ward. Like, I have had multiple hospitalizations between 2003 to 2007. And so when I had gotten to the last hospitalization in 2007, I always thought, okay, everything's good if you just never end up again in the psych ward. Whether it's helpful or not, just that was the thing that I was like, that is you don't do that, things are good. Now, for me, I see that the worst thing that could happen to me is that if I don't express and share about mental illness, if I don't share about whether it's suffering, whether it's recovery, whether it's hope, whether it's education, if I don't share that, if my mouth is taped shut and you hold my hands and I can't type or whatever, I can't blink it to you, that's the worst thing that could happen to me, okay? When we talk about on our own together, it's definitely, for me, I love public health. So public health is about looking at a group, not individual traditional medicine looks at one person. But on our own together, it's the things that you bring to the table, the things that you bring to the situation, and then you just start to add and add and add. So you're creating a strong foundation. You're creating things that can be built upon things. You're creating things that say, you don't have to be like me to do well. You don't have to be like me to get hope. If you're inspired by me, then what you should do is find paths to help you that's going to be the best. So it's great that we have options, but you have to find them yourself. You have to try different things. I tried a lot of stuff. Some things I never went back to, like when I was really sick with bulimia, and then even just other things. I went to like an Overeaters Anonymous group. Like, that didn't work for me. But it works for some people, So for me, one of, like, when you look at monumental things in your life, today was one of those things. Before I came here today, I stopped at Georgetown Hospital, the behavioral health unit, or the psych ward, right? To visit my godmother, and I helped my best friend, my god sister, navigate to get her hospitalized because she needed some stability and a medicine change, and she was experiencing a lot of symptoms. And for somebody to be able to call me and say, okay, no, go to this hospital. Oh, admissions is telling you that. No, let's call Medicare right now. I could talk about insurance all day. I love insurance, but I'm gonna stop there. Public health movie. But for me to sit there with her when I knew that she wasn't well, she was experiencing a lot of symptoms, for her to say to me, she's known me since I was 4. I'm 41 now, so she's known me since I was a toddler. For her to say, I didn't know that you had experienced like things like this, that you had been in the hospital, that you've had psychosis, that you've done this. She's like, you're the only person who really understands what I'm going through. And this is somebody in their 70s. And again, it's like for me, if I can wake up and be a blessing to someone else, then church, right? Temple of Praise, Southeast DC. But if I can be a blessing to someone else, then I receive an abundance of blessing. That's right. So for me to just go in and have someone who's known me for over 35 years say to me, you're the only one who understands what I'm going through right now. Whereas everybody wants to say, oh, you're just paranoid, or you're just in psychosis, and be very dismissive. And even though most of them aren't, they love her. But for her to see a peer without even knowing what a peer is, and for her to say that to me, that's what, like, a conference like this, the reason it's so important. Yeah. It touches, thank you, yes. It touches lives. The things that we touch are not just in this room, they're in networks. They are the conversation. I'm very loud, like all my friends know me, and people who aren't my friends or anybody, they know, like, Melinda, they can hear what you're saying. I'm like, I was always told you're so loud. I went to the ear doctor, and he tested to make sure I wasn't deaf. And he's like, your hearing is excellent. Right. I knew that because I can hear everything, right? I'm nosy. But he said maybe if other people have a problem with how loud you are, but do you have a problem with it? I said, no. He's like, then you're good. So it's like, I don't know where I was going with that. Just work with me. So it's just that we have to make sure, conversations. So I'll be in places just talking about mental health, like, just because it might come up. It's not like I see somebody like, let's talk about mental health today. I just might have a conversation, or somebody's looking at what I'm reading or something, and I'll just have a conversation. And then 5 people probably that were nearby and had their listening ears perked up, they'll come up to me and say, wow, what are you talking about? Or I'm doing this, can we talk about this? The most rewarding things are when people say, I've been going through things, but I never felt like anybody else like me was going through things. Because people have an image of what mental illness looks like. And a lot of times, I know when I first went into a behavioral health agency in DC, when I went in, I was like, I just need to do better, get up, because obviously I'm just playing around, I'm lazy, right? Because when you don't see people who look like you or who have similar backgrounds, again, that's the stigmas, and you're just suffering in silence. So for me, when I was able to say this as a commencement speaker for my GW graduation from the Master of Public Health, to say that, to have so many parents coming up to me saying, my child was suffering this whole time while they were in school. The stuff you were saying was hopeful for us, but it's hopeful for her. And that's why, like, on our own together, that's why I love NAMI DC. That's why I became a board member, co-facilitate the support groups, because on our own together has that diversity. It's that opportunity that you're not gonna find anywhere else. Like in community organizations, it's us. It's us that keep it running. I'm coming up on time, so I just wanted to share 2 things. My speech was called Black Girl Interrupted, a mental illness recovery and resiliency story, which is the title of a book I'm working on. and it will be just as random as I am. I found when I was looking through journals in February 21st in 1991, I found a journal, and at that time, do the math. I might have been like 15 or something. I wrote, sometimes I feel like killing myself because I'm not happy, but because I have so many dreams for when I grow up, and I know I'll probably go to hell if I did that, that's why I have it. Once I almost did. I started taking pill after pill, but I stopped after the 5th, only probably because I love Kenneth, my brother. I've been so depressed lately, sometimes it's not worth going on. Why does life have to be like this? Can't Robert, the trombone player, see I don't want his help? I don't know. I was in a visual performing arts school. I also wish some people would just leave me alone in school. If I don't look happy, can't people leave me alone and mind their own business? If I'm not telling jokes or acting silly, does it have to mean I don't feel well? Can't it mean I just don't feel happy? People don't know what the real me is. I'm a stranger to myself. 7/8 of the times, I'm a big joke. So I ask myself, why go on? I don't have the answer. For me, that was a surprise to find that entry because I don't remember knowing the words depression or suicide back then. I don't remember that, but I was going through some really horrible things that I was masking. So it doesn't surprise me that that was going on. But I wanted to just close with this excerpt. I haven't exercised in a while. Wow. A family member I hadn't seen in 2 years said this to my mom and me when we met at a restaurant. I thought, wow. Because this was the first time I could see self-fat shaming by someone else besides me. When I first saw him, I didn't think, oh, you really let yourself go. I thought keeping his jacket on the whole time was a little weird. I was repulsed by his statement because I imagined myself saying or thinking this for so long, and I had just broken through that day to loving myself instead of hating myself as I currently am. I broke through the belief I'm ugly because I'm fat. I'll be happier when I lose weight. I should have said this was in September 2017. For me, his statement reminded me of how horrible shaming of myself made me feel. I felt sorry for him because I know he doesn't realize he has beliefs about himself. It was probably hard to see us thinking he was not his best. I've been there through the multiple loss and weight gain periods in my life. I didn't want to socialize because I looked horrible because I'm too fat, even when I was sickly skinny. Sometimes you don't know how impactful your breakthrough is until something pops up that you usually accept as okay. But this time your heart and brain are saying, hell no. Because I'm aware of how empathetic I am, I didn't do the whole thing. Well, what are your goals? What's blocking you? Blah, blah, blah. Instead, I hugged him and sat down to lunch. I don't hate anyone or anything. Never have. I don't hate Satan. I always point out hate, that's a strong word when someone uses it for anything or anyone. However, I have hated myself for over 20 years. I truly mean hate. I have said it to myself. I have felt it towards myself. I have lived as I hated myself. When you hate, there is no room for other emotions to come in. You are void of all color. Love is colorful. I was comfortable accepting that I hated myself, and no matter what anyone tried in therapy or application, it wasn't going to change. In fact, my therapist and I were talking about this one week before I went to this event. I have always admired the effort of him and others who have tried to convince me otherwise, or to at least examine the emotion. I didn't think there was anything deeper than hating myself. I didn't think there was an end to the phrase, I hate myself because. It was simple to me. I hate myself because I don't believe the true me could be loved. At the event, Matt Kahn took the stage and we did some exercises, including personal love statements to replace the ones we have come to accept because of what others have said or not said. Mine was, you are beautiful. I broke down because I never accessed this or maybe never allowed myself to admit it because I did not have a logical solution to fix being ugly. Bulimia wasn't working for me anymore and hasn't for the last 10 years. My body can't handle the trauma of the purge. We also did an exercise of placing our hands on our heart and saying, I love you. Seems so simple. I complied, not expecting to have a reaction. Maybe after the 10th repetition, I started to believe in the possibility of loving myself and showing love to myself as I have to others, even strangers and assaulters. This was all before lunch and seeing my family member. I walked out the event doors, loving myself and looking forward to enduring and surviving my new love affair I was about to have with myself. This is why I was repulsed by his statement upon first laying eyes on him. I was him up to 30 minutes prior, but I shifted and I am no longer him. Thank you.